Welcome back to Solar Sessions. I am so excited to speak today about the 5 or more things that you need to look out for when choosing a freight forwarder, and who better to invite on than Refael Elbaz, founder of Unicargo. Hi, Refael. How are you?
Hey, Sharon, how are you? Great to be back.
Excellent. You're back for, I don't know, the 50th time onto the show and onto my channel. Before we begin, Refael, do you want to just quickly give a quick intro to who you are and who Unicargo is?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Refael. I'm the founder of Unicargo, a freight forwarding company for e-commerce businesses. Amazon sellers obviously provide all international shipping services, warehousing services, A to Z logistics services for e-commerce businesses. Working with all of the platforms today, Amazon, Walmart, Target, Shopify. We started our D2C endeavors recently as well. So basically, we've been dealing with logistics for e-commerce businesses for over 8 years now. And yeah, that's it. Let's dive in.
Great. So I will say that I've been a Unicargo client for, I think, more than 5 years now. So I've been with you guys for a really, really long time. And this is why whenever I want to talk about freight and shipping, I always speak to you. So the reason that I wanted to speak about this subject, Refael, is because I see that there's a lot of freight forwarders popping up all the time. And I wanted us to be able to give value to sellers and to people in general who are shipping their products, and help them to make a decision what to look out for when you're choosing a freight forwarder. So let's begin. I know that you wanted to say something before we got into
Before we ask ourselves what do we look for in the freight forwarder, I would start with evaluating your needs as a seller. For example, what type of services do you need? Do you require only international shipping directly from manufacturer to Amazon? Do you require additional services like warehousing services, domestic shipping services out of these warehouses to your marketplace, whether it's Amazon, Walmart, Shopify? Where do you need these warehouses? Do you need them in China to consolidate different orders into a big order? Do you need these warehouses in the US or Europe, basically wherever your marketplace is, just to overcome, for example, Amazon storage limitations? So there are many different types of services, of logistics services you might need as a seller. And I would start with evaluating these requirements, and then it'll really help you when choosing a freight forwarder to make sure to go over your list and make sure they can actually provide and support these needs. Another needs might be your product, right? Do you have a spatial handling on your product? Do you ship non-general cargo, as we call it, like things with batteries, product with powder, liquids, which requires different handling than regular shipments? Does your product has a regulation requirement at destination on the import side? So all of these things are very important to consider before you actually start evaluating a freight forwarder, because you want to make sure that freight forwarder that you're evaluating can actually support the initial things that you actually need. So that's kind of before we actually start looking for a freight forwarder. I will start by looking internally at your business to understand exactly what you need.
So to summarize, before you even get to the point of, let's just say you've got multiple quotes, etc. Now you need to make the decision. First of all, know what you need, understand what your product is, understand what it is that you need and what it is that you want from a freight forwarder, because maybe you do need warehousing, but you don't necessarily have to have it from your freight forwarder. So understand exactly what it is you need, understand your product, because only then can you actually make an educated decision how to move forward. Exactly. And whether that.
Exactly.
Excellent.
I think you would prefer, especially as a smaller business or an e-commerce business just starting out, or dealing with all the complexities and requirements. I think you would want to have less providers, right? So you want to start consolidating your provider. if your freight forwarder can offer warehousing services, you might find it simpler and easier to go with one provider rather than start splitting providers and managing different providers, different invoices, different procedures, routines, different teams to get to know. And I think it's easier, again, especially when you don't have a structured company with a supply chain manager and vendor relationship, which is, you know, quite complex and more suitable for bigger organizations.
Okay, great. So let's say I now know what it is that I need, and now I want to, you know, I've got many different quotes, and now I need to make a decision. The reason I wanted to speak about this, because usually people would say, well, I'm just going to go with the cheaper, right? And I want to educate people and say, well, wait a minute, there's lots of other things that you need to think about. So the first thing that, you know, you and I sort of spoke about is experience. So let's talk a little bit. So this isn't the number one thing. We're talking about all of these are important exactly on the same level. The first point that we have here is experience. So we each have some stuff to say about that. You can start.
Yeah, it's funny because before that meeting, we had an internal conversation, me and you, and we figured out that you and I view things differently. In a different way. You look at it from a seller's perspective, and I look at it from a freight forwarder's perspective, and we kind of prioritize the different things maybe differently, but we both agreed that the number one is the experience. And what do I mean by experience? First, I would say that you want to have a partner or a logistic provider that has experience with businesses like yourself. And what do I mean by that? Experience with e-commerce businesses is very important, and you want to make sure your provider has experience with e-commerce businesses, because from my perspective and from my experience doing that business for that many years, e-commerce businesses are totally different than regular importers, retail manufacturers. You know, these e-commerce businesses are usually, especially when they begin, when they're small, they're usually a one-man show. And as they grow, they start to bring in a VA, but it's not a structured company like a regular importing company where they have a logistics manager with years and years of experience, and he knows the drill, and he's done hundreds of shipments, and he has tons of experience, right? So e-commerce businesses, from our experience, they have a knowledge gap, let's call it this way. And a freight forwarder that understands e-commerce businesses know that he would need to explain a lot of things that might seem trivial or, you know, or obvious to the freight forwarder, but the actual client won't really know them. Simple things just as HS codes and customs classifications and import compliance, right? If when we work with a regular company, with an importing company that is not an e-commerce business or Amazon seller, we don't usually ask them, hey, do you know your import compliance? Do you know what it needs in order to import your product? But when we work with an e-commerce business, that's one of the first things we ask, because we've learned that many of them don't really know and understand that this type of product now needs this and this certificate, or this regulation in the import side, in the US, or in Europe, documentation. Some of them don't know how a commercial invoice actually looks like. And by finding a supplier or a logistics vendor that understand that type of business would save you tons of headache and pain and costs, probably, because mistakes, and I've said that many times, mistakes in international trade costs a lot of money, and you want to make sure you try to avoid as much as possible making mistakes.
Another point that you pointed out was important was obviously experience in your marketplace as well. So Amazon, explain to us why. I mean, I already know, but I want everyone to understand, why is it important if you're selling on Amazon, for example, why is it important that my freight forwarder understands Amazon or working with Amazon?
Yeah, so working with Amazon is quite unique with the requirements of delivering goods into Amazon. There are special systems that you as a carrier must be connected to in order to schedule appointment. Whereas where you deliver to a regular warehouse, a regular 3PL, it just sometimes you can just show up. Most of the time, you just need to send an email to schedule a delivery appointment to make sure to let them know you are coming. And here is the goods, here is the quantities, here is the packing list. This is the client name. I need a delivery appointment to drop off the cargo. Whereas in Amazon, in Walmart, and in Target, that in the bigger marketplaces works completely different. You actually have a computerized system that you need to connect to. You need to have authorization and logins to actually connect to. You need to transmit certain information about the seller, about the quantity of the good, about what type of van or what type of truck you're going to come in with, how does it pack. And that systems will usually generate the appointments for you, but they come with very strict regulations or requirements. You can't be late in more than 10 or 15 minutes. There's a special way to edit an appointment if you are not showing up. I don't know, your driver had a flat tire. If you need to change your appointment, if all of a sudden the seller decided, no, I don't want to ship 1,000 units, I just need to ship 500 units. There are special unique ways of editing these appointments and letting them know, and experience with that as a carrier is very, very, very important. And you don't want to get caught with a freight forwarder who tells you, yeah, I've been shipping to Amazon, I've known that, and it's just starting to learn on your shipment. That could be the worst case scenario, in my opinion. As far as experience, we've talked about it as well. The more experience that vendor has, the more experience that freight forwarder has with shipping to Amazon, as far as how many years he's been in business or how many shipments he's done to Amazon, he's probably seen all the problems, all the challenges, and solved them already. So you can learn from his experience, you can benefit from the actual freight forwarder experience. That's coming back to the point that you started out with. A lot of freight forwarders are popping up every single day. We see many different names. I don't say they are good or not good. I don't know, but at the end of the day, experience and having some mileage under your belt really helps. And yeah, that would be my biggest point here. Experience with the type of business you are and with your marketplace.
Okay, so I want to put my 2 cents on this as well. This is where we were saying, when I said when we made a list of the stuff together before we started, and experience was one thing to you and another thing to me, and both of them are important. So Refael's pointing out that first of all, you want to make sure that the freight forwarder that you are using has experience with the marketplace that you're selling in with your type of business, and that's obviously the most important thing, in my opinion. For me, also experience, like you were talking about, is, well, how long have they been in business? And how long have they been in business with my type of business, right? It doesn't mean that if a new forwarder that pops up isn't as good, well, it does, in my opinion. And I can say this because, I'm not a freight forwarder, I'm a seller. I've been through lots of ups and downs with shipping and needed a lot of times, to be saved. And, you have amazing workers who have saved me many, many times. And the thing is that so many problems can pop up. And the fact that the freight forwarder you're working with has been in business for many years with your types of business, for example, Amazon, they'll know how to deal with many, many different situations. So we can summarize, experience is probably one of the most important things, but obviously also making sure they have experience in your specific field, which in our case many times obviously is Amazon, Walmart, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second thing that we think is really, really important is to make sure that you're working with a reputable and credible freight forwarder. And just to give like an intro to what that means to me, and also something that's also important that maybe we could point out, I put up a poll in my Facebook group, and I asked, what are the most important things for you as a seller when it comes to a freight forwarder? And the number one, it had more than 50%. The number one thing was people said that the most important thing to them was making sure that they're working with a credible and reputable freight forwarder. Now, to me, what that looks like, that means that they social proof. So, word of mouth, people that there's proof that, people like me with businesses like mine use this type of freight forwarder. Number two, for example, that they have a website, right? Social proof is really what I'm looking for. And obviously the fact that other people in the industry are using them. What do you think, Refael, when it comes to repeatability, and credibility? What are things that someone could, look out for?
Yeah. So credibility is a very important thing as well. I would say that, by looking into a vendor's website, you can learn a lot about the company, right? Again, if I'm not a seller, but if I would do and analyze a service provider, I would go to the website. I would actually try calling the phone number, see who answers me. So that would give me a sense of what do I do in case of a problem or a challenge when I start using the service provider. Because in international shipping, there are a lot of challenges and a lot of problems and a lot of surprises along the way. Not only from the voyage point of view, just also from the seller's perspective. Sometimes you started a shipment and you want to make a change. Sometimes you need to do this instead of that. Things change. Things are very dynamic in that business, and by working with a reputable company, I would try to sense or check the ways of communication, right? Do I only have WeChat? Do I only have an email? Can I call someone? Who do I escalate where there is a problem, or if I'm not happy with what I'm getting, or if I'm not satisfied with the response I'm getting from that representative that I've assigned with? So what do you do in that case? I wouldn't want to be passive. I wanted to have tools, or I want to have the ability to push things down or to make sure I'm getting what I want. So by checking the means of communication with that provider would give me a lot of sense of what type of company I'm working with, right? Do I have the ability to reach out to a manager by myself? Do I have the ability to call? Do I have the ability to schedule a Zoom meeting or to actually visit the office if I need to? I'm not looking at only from a problem standpoint, but let's say I'm happy with the service provider. I want to start talking about terms. I want to start setting procedures. I want to start, doing more business with them. I want to have more services. I have questions. I look at a freight forwarder just like you look at a lawyer or a graphic designer. And I see it from my client, the best clients that we have, and they have the steadiest business possible because they look at the vendor as their logistics supplier as a partner. They would consult with him. They would ask a lot of questions. They would seek advice from the vendor and not tell the vendor what to do. You understand what I'm trying to say? You have a professional on your side. You're paying that professional, right? It's like that you don't go to a lawyer and you tell the lawyer what to do. You seek advice from that lawyer because he has the experience. He knows better. And that's the same way you need to look at your logistics partner, because hey, he's done that a million times already. He's been in the business for this and that years. He has more experience than you, and you should use that experience to your advantage. And for me, communication level, and I'm not just talking about responsiveness and how fast they would reply your email. I'm talking about the communication in a higher perspective. Am I able to go on a meeting with the guy? Am I able to escalate if I need? Am I able to nurture a relationship here? Is that a provider I see myself working for many years ahead while I'm growing my business? Is that partner going to help me grow my business? And when you look at things this way, I think that would give you a lot of power and benefit in your own business. So when you say reputable and credibility, for me, that's the first thing that pops into mind.
As a seller, another thing that I can point out is, who uses the freight forwarder. So, you can go into the Facebook groups, you can, go to search, you can type in freight forwarder, you can see what people's experience is. Do they have a proven track record? Yep. You want to make sure it's not someone that just popped out yesterday. The problem is there's so many, specifically also Chinese freight forwarders, that pop out and they slip into people's DMs on Facebook, on Instagram, etc. And they're, trying to lure in clients with really, really cheap prices, etc. But like, you don't know anyone that's used them. Right. This is why I also make sure to, I bring you on, and often I've worked with you guys for a long time, and it doesn't matter whether they choose you or whether they choose someone else. The point is, make sure that people that you respect or people that you actually know within this industry are also using these freight forwarders, or that someone, and that you ask questions. Hey, for example, someone could say, hey Sharon, I've got this type of shipments. I'm scared this and this could happen. You use Unicargo. Do you think they'd be able to handle this and this and this? And I'd come back and say, yeah, you know what, they're perfect. Or you know what, maybe you should go to someone else because of A, B, C, D. Like, you also want to speak to other people and make sure that it's the kind of world we live in today, right? It's so easy to know, of course, there's things like Trustpilot, etc. But reputation and reliability here is really important because of our industry, which is specifically also Amazon. Obviously different types of forwarders also will exist in the industry, in events and things like that as well. Make sure that you're making a decision not only by price, but also by the fact that people know who the freight forwarder is, and that you can also
I think that is a very important subject here, because I don't think choosing a freight forwarder only by a price is the wise thing to do. Price is very, very important. Very important. I'm not saying that it's not important, but you want to have references, as you just said. You want to talk to people who actually use that service. How was their experience? How would they recommend you working with these guys? I think that would be the most powerful thing to do, right? So where to look for a freight forwarder? I would say first thing is word of mouth. Talk to other sellers. Talk to guys who you look up to. Talk to guys who you think are successful in that business, right? See what their experience with these guys, right? And never, never, never go and choose a freight forwarder from a DM that you got,
on Facebook,
spam message that you got on Facebook with, offering prices or telling you how good and beautiful they are, because every freight forwarder will tell you they're good, they are the best, they're beautiful, they have the best customer service in the world, they have the best prices in the world. Every freight forwarder says that, every single one of them. And again, I'm one of them as well, but you won't hear a freight forwarder say, no, I don't have a good service, no, we don't have good prices. Nobody would say that. But the way to choose a freight forwarder is definitely start with word of mouth and references, social proof, as you said. And one last thing about that topic, I hear a lot of people talking about going into Alibaba, and this is advice that I see a lot of time in Facebook. Go into Alibaba and find the gold supplier, a freight forwarder that is a gold supplier, and use that as a reference. That's the worst reference possible. Then that's the exact opposite of social proof. I don't know if you know it, but gold supplier badge is you buy it, you pay money, and you
pay for it.
Become a gold supplier. Every single guy you, Sharon, can start an Alibaba listing tomorrow, pay money, and become a freight forwarder that is a gold supplier, and you've never done, you've never shipped, you're not a freight forwarder. So basically, everybody do that. That's not a good advice. Also, Alibaba is a platform for manufacturers and not service providers. There is no way to evaluate performance or credibility of freight forwarder on Alibaba. It's very different. A freight forwarding business is very different from manufacturing business, and Alibaba is not the way to go when you search a freight forwarder.
I just want to say one last thing about reputation and credibility, reliability. There's so many different ways that you can, before we move on to the next one, which will be communication. But I always say to people, I don't judge a freight forwarder or any service provider, by the way, only by when everything is good. I also judge a freight forwarder by how they handle shit, because shit happens all the time. Okay, especially during COVID, there was a lot of unexpected things that happened. But in general, during shipping, sometimes unexpected things happen. And how does your freight now you can't know until the freight, until you go through it, but you can, like, for example, people like me and others that have been through it. And, this is part of the reason why I've stuck with you guys for so long, because, if it's needed to, you guys will take accountability. If there's a problem, you'll find a way to fix it. What I'm trying to say is, also look at and also ask about, when things went wrong, how did the freight forwarder handle it? Sometimes a freight forwarder could suddenly disappear. You know what I mean? Or, suddenly something happened. Oh, wait, they put all of the cost only on you, or things like that. These are also things that are important. You don't just judge someone only by when things, went well. And because when it doesn't go well, you want to make sure that you're also working with someone that because of word of mouth and other things, it's also going to deal with it accordingly. Exactly.
Accountability is a very, very important thing. And that basically goes up to the management of the company and how the DNA of the company, and it ties up to experience working with sellers and etc. etc. But accountability is a very, very important thing. And you can't really assess it when you look for a freight forwarder, as you said, just later down the line when things happen. But that's it brings me back to the point of build a relationship. You can, but I don't think it would be wise to jump between new freight forwarders every shipment, because you don't have the chance to actually find the right partner or build a relationship with the right partner, because you meet him once a year. Because if you have, I don't know, 5 shipments a year and you do it with all different freight forwarders, you meet every provider once a year, which is, it's hard to build a relationship this way, and it's hard to actually find the right supplier for your business this way. I'm not saying you shouldn't check others. Some of the biggest Amazon sellers in the world, some of the biggest aggregators that we work with, they actually work with multiple freight forwarders as a strategy, and they assess performance, right? They would actually give you score on every single shipment. Did you meet your deadlines, right? You said on your quote there is a transit time. Did you meet that transit time? How was the price competitiveness compared to other freight forwarders, right? How was the speed of response? How did you tackle challenges? How did you deal with unexpected changes? So that would be also wise, right? To check different suppliers, different vendors, and to actually evaluate their performance, evaluate the price competitiveness, and evaluate their deadlines, which is very, very important as well.
I agree, and there's a few things you said that I also want to put into the third thing that we're speaking about is communication. We did sort of touch on communication, I think, just really, really quickly, because I do want us to get into pricing. It's one of the important things. Communication to me means how quick are they to get back to me on a quote. That's something that can also make or break. If it takes a freight forwarder 3 or 4 days to get back to you, you're already there, and I don't know, there's a ship going out in 2 days, you could have missed opportunities. So to me, I'm just quickly going to go through what's important to me, and you will say, okay, so to me, quick quoting is important. Updates, the fact that I have the ability to also speak not only through email, can I like you said, can I get them on the phone? Can I hop on Zoom if I need to? Okay, I know, for example, if there's a problem or whatever, you'll hop, you're the founder now, you brought in a CEO, but you know what I mean? You're the big boss, and you'll hop on a Zoom call sometimes if it's needed, right? Not every single person does that. So timely updates. Another thing that's important to me when it comes to communication is also, beyond problem solving and getting back to me quickly, it also is transparency. To me, that's something that is important. Transparency also will go under quoting, but also in communication, something that, for example, I think is important is that a supplier, also supplies and manufacturers, but a freight forwarder is also straightforward. They need to be transparent, which is a lot of the times not digging on the Chinese, forwarders, but a lot of the times, for example, the Chinese forwarders, they're not transparent, right? And another thing about communication, if I have a freight forwarder that all they do is speak to me through Facebook, for example, like you said, there isn't a phone number, there isn't email, etc. That's also concerning to me. I want to be able to get you from every angle, if I need to. So those are the important things to me. Is there anything that you want to add, Refael, on a communication level?
Yeah, there are good point there. I want to touch on transparency again. Transparency, again, it might differ from business to business, and your sensitiveness for transparency, but you want to make sure you get, and that's also related to experience with, moving freight. Documents, your shipping documents, bill of lading, right? The bill of lading would point out exactly when the ship has sailed, right? When the containers arrive to port, when it would arrive. So you want to make sure you know your documents, your shipping document, the basic ones, bill of lading, to make sure you understand the exact dates, and not only be told on Facebook or on a WeChat, yeah, the shipment has sailed, yeah, it should arrive next week, it should arrive next month. You want to have documents, you want to have backups, and that's not a special requirement. That's part of freight forwarding. We are obligated, these are legal documents. We are obligated to send a bill of lading on every single shipment that we move, whether it's air, ocean, and even land transportation. Entry summary. You have imported a product. You are the importer of record. You are the owner of the product. Do you see the actual entry summary? Do you see what was declared on your product? Do you see what value was declared? Do you see what classification was declared? Now, again, I would say that again, it's very important. I know that different businesses, especially on the e-commerce space, have different sensitivity. They will have a different sensitivity on how things are done, or how straightforward things are going, and how transparent they want to be with their supply chain. And it's your decision as a business. It's your decision. The freight forwarder is obligated to provide these documents. Again, it's not a special request. It's not a hassle. It's not an effort. This is part of our job, to provide you with documents, legal documents that go along with your shipment. That's for transparency. So updates is also a very important thing. How do you get an update? Is it an automated from a system, right? Is it an email? Is it a WhatsApp? Is it a WeChat, Facebook? I don't know. Again, that's also brings me back to the prologue I did of evaluating your need. Part of evaluating your need is understand what you have as a client, right? Do you have 3 shipments a year? Do you have 50 shipments a year, right? Based on your size, you want to start building procedures, right? Do you want automatic updates? Do you want them all going to your email? Do you want to have an Excel file every other day with the latest updates? So all these things are very, very important as well when choosing a provider, understanding what their capabilities are, how they're going to report to you with the statuses. The last thing you want to do is start chasing updates. Hey, where is my shipment? Hey, when is it due to arrive? Hey, what's next? Is it custom cleared? How much do I need to pay here? How much do I need to pay there? What's next? So the way the freight forwarder sends you updates, or the capabilities the freight forwarder has in that realm, is very, very important as well. And again, it really depends on the type of business and size of business mainly. But the bigger you get and the more shipments you move, you want to start automating things. You want to start moving out of emails, right? Remember that a shipment would have 10, 15 different milestones. If you start getting an email on every single milestone, imagine that you have 5 shipments on the go, and you need to get 10 to 15 emails on every shipment. You're looking at about 100 emails only on updates. Who would follow these?
Yeah.
You won't really remember. So the way the system works with the freight forwarder is also very, very important.
That's a good point. So that leads us into the next one, which is something that you and I will also dedicate an entire, video to in the future. But obviously, pricing is something that's important when you're choosing a freight forwarder. And you and I have different points on when it comes to pricing, but I think that, one of the most important things is making sure that you are, comparing apples to apples. So let's give a few examples. And of course, if you have anything to say on pricing specifically, go for it.
Yeah, I want to start with, when it comes to freight forwarding, Prices are pretty much transparent. They are almost the same for every freight forwarder. Remember that freight forwarders buys their products or their transportation from carriers. We don't own vessels and we don't own airplanes, right? 90% of the freight forwarders. So the price is almost the same for freight forwarders. And freight forwarders would put their margins on top of these prices to cover their expenses and make a profit. Now, these margins across the industry are pretty much the same. They're going between 10, 12%, 7 to 12%. Depends on the client, depends on the volume, depends on many different things, but that would be the range. And if you are getting a quote from freight forwarder A for $1,000 and a quote for freight forwarder B for $1,500, there must be something off there. Most probably you're not comparing apples to apples. As you said, there are many different types of services, time, how fast they arrive, how many ports they go through the way. Does it include, I don't know, custom clearance services? Does it include IOR services? Does it include insurance? So there are many, pricing in the freight forwarding industry is not a very straightforward thing. It's not as simple as we would like it to be. But what I'm trying to say is that there shouldn't be a gap of over 5 to 10% between different freight forwarders, right? The industry standards are the industry standards for profits, for margins, and we pretty much all buy almost the same. So if you see a very big difference, most probably, again, and I would say most probably because every case has an exception, but most probably you are not comparing apples to apples. And that's, again, if you trust your freight forwarder, if you've been working with them for a while, if you like them and you want to keep on working with them, it's worthwhile to just talk to them and ask, hey, how come your quote is this and the quote I got from, I don't know, the new vendor I'm looking at, my other freight forwarder is that? And you'll probably get explanations, and you'll find out that a lot of times you were just not comparing apples to apples, which is okay, because again, that's exactly why you have that freight forwarder for, to explain and also explain the differences in prices.
I'm happy that you brought that up, that you could also communicate, because this is something that I do want to say an example of something that you know about. I had a client that came to me and she said to me, Sharon, I got multiple quotes. One of the quotes was from Unicargo, another one was from another freight forwarder, and one of them was from a Chinese forwarder. And Unicargo's price was this, and the Chinese forwarders was this, and there was what she would call a big gap. And I said, look, what you can do is you can actually reach out to Unicargo and say, I was offered this price. Can you please explain to me why there's such a difference there? And when that happened, the person at Unicargo came back and said, well, these aren't the same quotes. What they're offering you here, in China, is the slowest lane. And the client asked for the fastest lane, and you guys gave her the quote for the fastest lane, right? Just as an example, this isn't the exact example. For example, what China was offering was, let's just say 60 days. What you were offering, let's just say, was 35. And then I came back and I said, you need to make sure that A, you're comparing apples to apples, and B, you can always come back. If you've got a relationship with your freight forwarder, you don't need to be scared to come and say, hey, look, I got multiple prices. This is the price that I got from A, B, C, D, or not say. If you don't want to say who it is, you don't have to. And give your freight forwarder also a chance to come and either explain why, or they may be able to give you that same type of price, right? That's also something that a lot of people don't understand. It's not that it's highly negotiable. My point is, though, if someone was to bring it, for example, to your attention or to someone else, you may be able to even either beat that price or give an explanation as to why. But the biggest mistake I see people doing is they're not comparing a quote for a quote, and it's like taking a product, I'm just going to give an example, taking a product that is, made very, very cheaply for, let's just say in China, compared to a product that's made very, very, with really high quality materials, etc. Let's just say in the USA, and trying to have them be the same prices, right? It's not the same. So the same way that you wouldn't do with that, also here, make sure that you are comparing apples to apples, and that you're not compromising on quality.
Yeah, one of the challenges that we found out that we have is, as a company and as a business, because freight forwarding is not that straightforward. You know, there's a lot of hidden costs, a lot of hidden words. You can play with quoting on, you know, I've seen quotes on Facebook that clients show me that they got from different freight forwarders. You know, one line, hey, it's gonna cost you $2,000, DDP, 20 to 40 business days. Now, what does a business day mean? You know, what the other freight forwarder gave you a business day? The transit time, is it by business days? Is it regular day? There's so many complexities that freight forwarders sometimes put, you know, knowingly to confuse or to make things vague. So you won't be able to compare apples to apples, because sometimes that's unfortunately a strategy where, you know, there are so many, even just one word could change the way the quote is given or the type of quote, even one word. You know, do you get a PDF with on your quote? Do you have, I don't know, terms and conditions? What does it include? What happens if? What happens if there is a customs exam now? Who's liable for the cost on DDP? The freight forwarder, you. So there are a lot of questions regarding quotes, and I know that freight forwarders sometimes knowingly put things, you know, like vaguely or adding different words like business days or regular days, and it brings me to the point of, also you said it, build a relationship. Don't be shy to ask what's the difference, why yours are this and his are that. Or when you build a relationship, the person you are working with, he would know your business, he would already know your requirements. So again, when you build a relationship, when you look at your vendor as a partner, he would start learning your business, and you would start removing these complexities which you waste time on, by actually building partnerships and making sure the freight forwarders are slowly and gradually learning your business, learning your product. All right, I know this is a top seller, it goes very fast. I know this guy always wants the fastest possible option for this type of product. This type of product has very low margins. I know that he needs the dirty cheap price, the cheapest price possible. He doesn't care about the transit time. That things come with the partnership. When we start working together, when we talk, when we go on a Zoom call, when we learn your business, and we already know what you need because we've talked about it and we've done that. And that experience working with a client, that actually what brings you to start to gradually, you know, you don't waste your time all of a sudden comparing quotes and starting asking questions, because you've known that you got what you need. Now you need to start asking questions, the new guys, are you giving me what I'm regular to? So again, it boils down to look at it as a strategic partnership and build a relationship. That one of the most important two things here. And again, I'm not saying you should compromise on price. That's not what I'm saying. You should mark your providers. You should check once in a while that the price you're getting is the market price. There are many different ways to do that. You don't go blindly with one supplier. That's not what I'm saying. That's not the right advice. If I were a seller, I wouldn't do it as well. So I understand that, but you want to start finding that supplier or that vendor that you love working with, that you have good connections with, that your representative, the guy who's working with you at that company, is actually, you know, you have a connection. You have this, you talk on the same level, and it just works. And where the problems that are there, and you know you can escalate, and you know you can give him a call if, I don't know, something happens, they don't answer your email for 5 hours. Things happen. People go to sleep. People have kids. People have lives, right? And things happen all the time with every company. But once you build a relationship, once you get to know each other, you know, I have clients calling my team, you know, personal people calling to personal people on their phones every day. They're calling to their mobile phone. They talk on WhatsApp. They send gifts to each other. They talk about their lives. They talk about their families. They become friends, and that's nurturing relationship. But at the end of the day, think about it. When you nurture, when you build a relationship with your representative, when things happen, he would be the first one to stand in line for you. He would be the first one to be accountable. You build, he's your friend. You know that.
Yeah.
You actually have friends here and in other companies that you work with. I know that. But think what happens when things get worse, when things get bad. They would stand up for you because you're not just a random John Doe who came from the internet and became a client. People care about you. People care about your business. People would take accountability. And I have people here sometimes knocking on my office and fighting me. Hey, I'm not gonna charge my client this, and that. Why? Because I don't know. It's not his fault. We fucked up. It's not his fault. I'm not gonna pay for it. We are not gonna pay for it. And I let it go. You know the best. You are the owner of the relationship with the client. You would decide if you want to have that file on loss. I'm good with that. You build a client, you build a relationship, you nurture a client, right? So again, that's my perspective on things.
I'm really happy that you said that, and it just brought me to a memory of you used to have someone in your company called Itai who left. His wife still works with you guys. He's the reason I came to Unicargo originally.
Yeah, I remember that.
He saved me in different scenarios. We had an amazing relationship, and then I met you, and then you and I. But relationships is everything, I think, in business, no matter what. But you're definitely right that it's like, this is coming back to what I said, when things fuck up, right? If you have, so if something, if there's a problem, I personally hold the relationship with you. I'll go to you, or I'll go to Noi, or I've got my people. If something happens, I call Aviv, who works, so I totally understand what you're talking about. And I think it's such an important thing, probably the most important thing. Probably could have started with that. But I just want to, for 1 second before we close up, I want to just quickly go back to when we were talking about making sure that we're comparing apples to apples. And then we'll close with the relationship side of things. When you're getting a quote, and like you said, so to summarize what you were saying that there's a standard. Your pricing when you're getting a quote shouldn't be dramatic. And if it is, it's a red flag for me, right? Something to look out for is, very often Chinese forwarders specifically, they may change the HS code, right? Maybe you're selling a bag and they're saying, as if, I don't know, you're selling something that there's no duties on instead, which they're trying to be the cheapest price, but then suddenly there's an inspection on the container, and so these are things to look out for. And not only that, sometimes a typical also Chinese way of bringing down a price is by taking the commercial invoice and making a huge difference in price. Let's just say the product costs whatever $7 on the market is the price. They'll put it down, for example, as $1, right? So sometimes there's also red flags that you also need to look out for. And that's just stuff, for example, that reputable forwarders can't even compete against. You can't compete against a Chinese freight forwarder. Exactly. And so that's also stuff to make sure. If there's I'm talking about if there's a big difference in quotes, usually there's a red flag. Something's going on that you need to look out for. And it's beyond just comparing apples to apples. You need to go down and look at, okay, what am I actually paying for?
Yeah. It's either a very big red flag, or you're just not comparing apples. It's either that or that.
You're missing something dramatic. Yeah.
Exactly. And it brings me back to the transparency thing. Businesses has different sensitivity regarding how transparent they want to be. I've seen it with my own eyes. Some businesses, they would close their eyes and say, I don't care. As long as it gets there, I don't care what's been done. I don't want to know. I'm paying the cheapest price possible. That's my goal. I get my cogs where I want them to be. That's it. I don't care. And some businesses would
not take the risk.
Would not take the risk. They would want to see everything. They want to make sure things are, by the book. They want to see the documents. They want to see what did you declare and what is the HS code and what value did you declare. And the funny thing is, the more you grow as a business, the more you want to be more transparent and you want to do things by the book, because you have more to lose. You have a bigger business. You hire people. You're feeding families, right? You think of an exit. You think of a due diligence someone might do to you when you want to when you think about selling your business, right? Again, on due diligence, they would look at things. They would see your shipping document. They would try to see what you declare. Think about it. If you don't care about your declaration, if you don't care about what's been done on the back end, and you only care about your cog, that's fine. But when somebody else comes to buy your business, he would very care about what's being done in the back end. And if your cogs are $1 by closing your eyes, and the buyer won't close his eyes and his cogs would be $2, that would change completely your valuation.
What a really good point that I wouldn't have even thought about making. Great point, Refael.
So and that's why we've seen that the bigger the business gets, the more important it is for them to start doing things by the book, to start monitoring the documents, and again, I don't know, I'm guessing everybody's here to build businesses and to build successful businesses and do it the right way.
Legitimate businesses.
Yeah, just make sure you're not fooling yourself. That's what I'm saying.
By the way, I have no problem. Well, I mean, we're putting this on the internet. I'm okay if there's a gray area. I'm okay if there's a gray area, like if you want to, make minor things, but not you, it's me. If I as a buyer ask you to do it, but if a forwarder has done it
if a buyer asks us to do something, we won't do it. We will ask him to do it. We are not allowed to do that.
First of all, I know how you guys work, and I know like what your boundaries are. But what I'm talking about, you guys have boundaries of things that you will not do because of your reputation, and I think that that's great. But what I'm talking about is when I'm getting a quote and there's a dramatic change of price of like let's just say, I'm giving an example. Unicargo gave, let's just say, $4,000, and a Chinese forwarder, let's just say, gave $1,500 or $2,000. It's a huge difference, and they're offering supposedly, let's just say, the same thing, right? I want to know if they've made a change to my HS code. I want to know if they've gone and made. So I'm not saying that I'm 100% against it, but I need to know about it. And sometimes when you're comparing apples to apples, you also need to ask those questions as well. That was like also my point as well.
There's a great exercise I always tell clients to do, and that will shed a lot of light on what you just said. Ask, if you work with, I don't know, DDP product or Asian freight forwarders, ask for a quote for backpacks with a value of $10,000 and make sure your volume, the shipment that you're quoting on is 2 CBM 500 kg. 2 CBM 500 kg door-to-door China, USA would cost, I don't know, between $800 to $1,500 to move the freight. The duties on that shipment would be $5,000 alone. So the proper quote you should be getting is about $7,000. On moving backpacks, $10,000 of value, 2 CBM 500 kg. Do that practice. Start asking freight forwarder, hey, I have a shipment, I have a backpack shipment. Here's the value, here's the HS code, and that's 2 CBM 500 kg. I wanted to make sure it's a small shipment because I know that the freight cost is little, but the
duties
is very, very high. Huge. It's $5,000 just on duties. You'll get very different answers from very different vendors. Try it. It's a very interesting practice to do.
It's a good, because backpacks have depends what type of backpack.
47
around
backpacks,
40. Yeah,
regular backpacks have 47% duties. Regular duties, some duties.
I love that. I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to do that just to see what happens.
It's an interesting case study to do.
It's a great way to weed out, the people that, by the way, maybe someone, like you said, maybe someone is willing to do that and they have no problem. You know what? They prefer to do that. No problem. But, I specifically would want to know about it as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that we have some great points here. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to help me make this educational video for people. I think it's really, really important things to speak about, especially with the amount of people popping out every day. I think that's important that people are educated so they can make an educated decision on who to go with and not just say, oh, well, this is the cheapest quote, let's go with them, because it's not the right way to do things in my experience. Refael, before we finish, if anyone wants to reach out to you or your company, how can they find you?
Well, if you want to reach out to my company, you can just Google Unicargo. You'll, get to our website. There's a lot of ways to contact us. You can contact us via Facebook by searching Unicargo, LinkedIn, on most of the social media channels. If you want to reach out directly to me, you can reach out through my LinkedIn profile. Just search my name. I'm always there. I'm always available 24. That's our business. We're always online. You can reach out through LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or even email. That's Refael@unicargo.com. I'll always answer, always available, always happy to hear from listeners, from our audience, from whoever has questions. I'll be able to point him to the right direction. Yeah, that's it.
You could also email if you need to get a quote from Unicargo, service@unicargo.com. Refael is also very, very active in the groups and is always happy to help, even if you're not a Unicargo client. Some people go through some shit and they'll ask a question and I'll tag you and you're always happy to answer, which is not taking
I'm very
for
happy
granted.
to help because then we make them a client.
That's true. All right. Thank you very much, Refael, and thank you for everyone. And we'll be back next week.
Thank
Bye.
you.